This material explores the chaotic, toxic dynamics and dramatic breakups chronicled in The Paper Office of Broken Hearts and Bad Romances. So a key theme running through this material seems to be the sheer absurdity of Michael and Jan's toxic cycle, specifically pointing out the 3 vasectomies, the DEFCON 20 panic, and the emotionally magnificent boob enhancement reconciliation attempt.
The portrayal of Michael and Jan's relationship heavily emphasizes comedic absurdity, but it misses a critical opportunity to explore the underlying emotional manipulation at play.
Yeah, it really does feel like it's just playing it all for laughs, you know?
Exactly. I mean, the weakness here is that the text currently treats the extreme elements of their relationship purely as, like, chaotic punchlines.
Right.
When you look at Michael's panicked plea, what if she makes me get back together with her, or the physical toll of those multiple vasectomies, it's treated as a joke.
It's all slapstick.
Yeah, completely slapstick. And by doing that, the narrative leaves the darker psychological reality of Jan's coercive control severely underexplored. The humor is essentially acting as a smokescreen.
So the comedic pacing is kind of blinding the writer to the actual abuse happening in the scene.
Precisely. So my suggestion is to shift the narrative angle. Contrast that surface-level absurdity with the genuine emotional toll it takes on the protagonist.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have some concrete examples of how they could do that?
Sure, just a few possible ways to solve the problem. Instead of presenting Michael asking for help to avoid getting back together as pure farce, they could reframe the commentary around that dialogue.
Oh, I see. Like highlighting his genuine vulnerability?
Right, and his complete lack of agency. When a grown man is asking his subordinates for help because he's terrified his partner will force him into a relationship, that's the language of someone stripped of their autonomy.
Wow, yeah. It's dark when you pause and unpack it.
It really is. And another example is analyzing Jan's use of specific phrases like second chances and emotionally magnificent.
They sound like therapy buzzwords.
Exactly. You analyze that as calculated, manipulative language designed to mask her erratic behavior and, regain control over Michael. It's a Trojan horse.
That's a great point. It's almost like their dynamic is a funhouse mirror. It distorts reality for the characters trapped inside it, but the writer needs to occasionally break that illusion, and show the audience the real, uncomfortable reflection.
That is a perfect analogy. And building on that, is there a risk that focusing solely on the comedy of the vasectomies might overlook the absolute tragedy of Michael's isolation?
Oh, absolutely. Because the snip-snop sequence is funny on the surface, but it's really about a partner desperate to placate an unstable presence, right?
Yeah, undergoing repeated physical mutilation just to appease her. The proximity to the joke blinds the reader to the fact that Jan has completely isolated him. She removed his support systems and monopolized his finances.
It really is a horrifying mechanism of control. And while Jan uses manipulation behind closed doors, Ryan and Kelly operate completely differently. They use dramatic manipulation to control their own self-image.
Oh, completely.
So let's look closely at the section discussing Ryan's bizarre proposal to Kelly, where he refuses to promise he won't cheat and explicitly says he wants to roll those dice, followed by her immediate rejection of him for Ravi.
Ryan and Kelly's chaotic dynamic is vividly captured through their dramatic declarations, yet the narrative lacks a clear perspective on how their performative toxicity acts as a shield against genuine intimacy.
It just reads as totally unhinged right now.
Right, that's the weakness. The material presents their bizarre, rapid-fire dialogue, like Ryan saying modern marriages aren't built that way, and Kelly's sudden pivot to Ravi, purely as erratic, unexplained behavior.
It's like they're describing the symptoms but missing the actual diagnosis.
Exactly. It scatters the focus rather than anchoring it in why they thrive in this constant state of chaos. So the suggestion here is to focus the narrative lens on the concept of performative romance.
Performative romance, okay.
Yeah. Analyze how they actively weaponize dramatic conflict in public spectacles to avoid the terrifying prospect of real, quiet vulnerability. They are terrified of genuine intimacy.
Because that requires dropping the mask.
Exactly. Neither wants to risk the ego hit of being truly perceived. So, as a few possible ways to solve this, you could start by deconstructing Ryan's honest proposal about rolling the 50-50 dice.
Right, don't just treat it as quirky dialogue.
Exactly. Examine it as a preemptive defense mechanism. By telling her up front that he can't promise fidelity, he's building an intellectual fortress to excuse his future bad behavior.
Oh, wow. So he can never be the bad guy.
Right. He establishes the contractual terms of his emotional neglect in advance. It's profound self-sabotage. And then, for Kelly, you examine her immediate choice of Ravi and Ryan's explosive reaction as a mutual performance of stability.
Because Ravi is just a prop for her.
Yes, she's using him to elevate her status in front of Ryan. It demonstrates how their toxic orbit requires a constant, dramatic audience to function.
You know, I actually want to push back on a conventional assumption here. The text assumes they're a bad match because they make each other miserable. But what if they are actually perfectly suited for each other precisely because neither wants a real partner, but rather an audience member for their own personal soap opera?
Oh, I love that. Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of them being co-stars rather than lovers?
Right.
It completely changes the analytical focus. If they are co-producers of a dramatic performance, every erratic action makes logical sense. Ryan proposing the dice roll is just pitching a season finale cliffhanger.
And Kelly rejecting him is just negotiating for a better storyline.
Exactly. It keeps them completely safe from the devastating reality of genuine rejection.
That's fascinating. And you know, this idea of needing an audience and a stage brings us directly to the physical space they inhabit. That suffocating, claustrophobic environment of the office itself really breeds the secret betrayals seen in the Dwight, Angela, and Andy love triangle.
It really does.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this section, mapping out the overlapping betrayals, including the shocking revelation to Andy where Dwight says, "She was sleeping with you, I'm a fiancé," and the collateral damage of Aaron discovering Andy's past with Angela during the Secretary of Love's serenade.
The overlapping betrayals in the love triangle provide high drama, but the material fails to articulate the broader significance of how these secret affairs reflect the suffocating isolation of the character's environment.
It gets way too bogged down in the timeline, right?
Exactly. That's the fundamental weakness. The critique is hyper-focused on the logistical shock value. You know, the mechanical accounting of who slept with who when.
Like an HR incident report.
Yes, it dissects quotes like, "She was only sleeping with me twice to establish facts," completely bypassing the "so what," the deeper significance of why they seek extreme validation and cannibalize their own tiny social circle it's missing.
So how do we fix that?
The suggestion is to elevate the narrative significance by connecting their romantic betrayals directly to their desperate need for control, status, and escapism within their mundane, incredibly confined daily setting.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have some concrete examples for the rewrite?
Yeah, just a few possible ways to approach it. You could juxtapose Dwight's intense pride in the mundane party planning committee with Angela's extreme secrecy regarding the affair.
Oh, looking at them both as power plays.
Right. They are effectively drones with very little control over their professional destinies, so controlling a secret affair or fiercely controlling napkin colors becomes substitute fiefdoms.
It's macro politics in a micro environment.
Exactly. And you can use Andy's oblivious public singing of Secretary of Love while Aaron is simultaneously discovering his past to illustrate how they project grand romantic fantasies onto each other to escape the bleakness of their reality.
But the enclosed environment inevitably forces the truth out.
Right. There is nowhere to hide the collateral damage.
Let me ask a clarifying question, though. By focusing so heavily on the who slept with who when mechanics, does the manuscript inadvertently dilute what is actually a fascinating psychological study of workplace confinement?
That makes sense. But could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like viewing these affairs not merely as failures of individual morality, but as desperate symptoms of boredom and proximity.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the proximity is the punishment.
Exactly. When your entire world is reduced to 50 square feet of carpet, the stakes of every human interaction become artificially inflated. The setting is the primary catalyst for the toxicity.
They manufacture drama just to feel alive in a static environment.
Yeah,
The physical space needs to be a central character in that dynamic.
Well, to recap the main points of today's critique, first, we discussed deepening the angle on Michael and Jan to highlight emotional coercion rather than just absurdity.
Right.
Second, we focused the Ryan and Kelly section on performative romance as a defense against intimacy. And third, we elevated the significance of the love triangle by connecting it to the claustrophobia and isolation of their environment.
Exactly.
So look past the comedic dialogue to find the psychological motivations, treat the environment as a catalyst for their toxicity, and ensure every dramatic moment answers the so what for the reader. Thank you for submitting your material. We encourage you to implement these revisions and submit your work back in again for further